Today, I have with me on the show Chris Manderino. He is the co founder and CEO of LyfeFuel. Chris is an accomplished former NFL athlete turned entrepreneur and certified plant based nutrition expert. Becoming passionate about optimizing human performance and wellness is what led him on this path. With his unique journey from professional sports to business leadership, Chris brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the table. As a former NFL fullback, Chris enjoyed a successful career on the field. Throughout his football career, Chris not only honed his physical skills, but he also developed a deep understanding of the importance of nutrition, recovery, and overall well being for peak performance. Inspired by his own experiences and a desire to help others find their true potential, Chris embarked on a new chapter in his life after retiring from professional football. He founded LyfeFuel, a cutting edge wellness brand that combines science backed nutrition with a holistic approach to health. With LyfeFuel, Chris aims to empower individuals to enhance their performance, improve vitality, and achieve their optimal well being. Chris, welcome to the show.
Carol, thanks so much for having me, and what a great introduction. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I want to dive into Life Fuel, how that came about, and also your time in the Blue Zones because that's an interest of mine as well. But I wanted to back up a little bit and just to give all of us perspective on your start. What led you to NFL football?
Yes, so as a kid, I was always active. I played a bunch of different sports growing up. I think by the time I got to high school, though, I had a setback. I had a subluxated shoulder when I was a sophomore, and so at that point, I was kind of pursuing multiple sports, playing basketball, football, and other things. And I think having that, really set me back and made me focus on football exclusively because I wasn't able to do anything in the off season at that point. So it was really about rehabbing the shoulder and getting ready to play the upcoming season for football. Also started to realize that if I wanted to play at the next level, that was going to be my best chance of doing so. And so I just went all in on football at that point and really, hit the weight room hard and, all the training and everything that, it takes to really excel as a football player. And, in high school, I was a quarterback, I was a tailback, I was like kind of played all over the field in multiple different positions. And that was good and bad. The good thing is, I can show what I could do at a bunch of different uh, positions and a varied skill set. But for college scouts, they kind of overlooked me because, I didn't play my entire senior year at quarterback. I moved to tailback. And even though I led the county in rushing and all this stuff, it was just tough. And so a lot of the scholarship offers that I hoped would come never actually came. And so I was faced with a really difficult decision as to whether to walk on to some of the bigger schools that were recruiting me, but didn't have any scholarships to hand out, or go to junior college for a couple years and try to prove myself there before then going and getting a scholarship, or having football just kind of be secondary to education and maybe going back east. There's some opportunities to go like Ivy League and kind of do that where football wasn't as prominent, but I could kind of leverage that to get into school and those types of things. And so um, ended up that Berkeley was actively recruiting me. Kind of wanted to stay in California, and also the opportunity to get an amazing world-class education. And I decided to take a walk-on opportunity with Berkeley, and um, very shortly after I arrived at training camp, they moved me to a brand new position at fullback, which I had never played before. And I was considerably undersized, about 200 pounds as a redshirt freshman, and just got my butt kicked every single day and wanted to quit every single day. But I'm glad I didn't, because just toughing it out and kind of going through that really challenging time led to a new opportunity the following year. We had a new coaching staff that had come in, and it was kind of a clean slate for everybody to show what they could do. And I had the opportunity to then show what I could do at both tailback and fullback, and had a great fall camp, great spring camp, and was awarded a full scholarship after a redshirt freshman year. And I just remember that first year, just looking down, we'd practice above the Cal football stadium, just being miserable, tired, just kind of fed up with everything. But looking down and seeing that stadium and just telling myself that it would all be worth it if I could just, get the chance to run out of the tunnel in front of, 75,000 fans and just have that moment. I thought, that probably happened by the time I was a junior or senior. And for me, you know, it just happened with so much quicker. And so there I was, awarded a full scholarship and named the starting fullback as a redshirt freshman at Cal. And then that ultimately held that position for 4 years, which gave me the opportunity to then get noticed by some of the NFL scouts and then pursue a career in the NFL.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that story because you didn't give up. You had this challenge. I mean, first the injury and then not getting the scholarships as you had planned. And I know from having done, I used to do bodybuilding shows, and then before that, I was a marathon runner, two totally different sports.
Yeah.
And I remember deciding one day, okay, I'm this skinny marathon runner. I'm going to do these bodybuilding shows. I'm going to get on stage and do these shows. I've always wanted to do it, and not having the body for it. And I was kind of relating to that. Oh, that challenge, that adversity that you come up against, but you go, no, this is hard. It kind of sucks in the moment, but I'm going to push through this. So I love that you shared that because I think sometimes people, they look at an athlete, they look at a football player, basketball player, whatever, and they think somehow it's come easily. And there's a whole backstory behind that. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to share.
So you move from NFL, professional football player, eventually to going into the field of health. So I want to back up a little bit. What was your eating like back at that time? I have a pretty good idea, and I know I went through a similar thing with first a runner. It's like, okay, carb load, and I ate a bunch of junky carbs, and then it was like protein, 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 but no emphasis on quality of food. So I just wanted to get your background in what your journey was like nutrition wise.
Yeah, I would say it was kind of similar to your experience where, I was coming out, again, I was a quarterback in high school, linebacker, tailback. So I wasn't necessarily the biggest guy. And then, for a fullback, which is where I ended up landing, I was considerably undersized, probably about 40, 50 pounds under what the average fullback would be in the Pac-12 at that point in time. So here I am, the skinny, 205-pound freshman, and I've got the, coaching staff and the trainer saying, hey, you've got a real shot here, but you got to eat, you got to put on some weight. So that's where, eating almost became a full-time job, just trying to get the enough calories in throughout the day because I was training at such a high level, I had to, you know, just to support like the basal metabolic rate and everything I was burning, plus get that caloric surplus. And so that, as you can probably attest to, becomes quite exhausting. You just kind of get fatigued with food a lot of times. And that's where, protein shakes and different things, those were advantageous because you get some liquid calories in without like just that overstuffed feeling or having to sit down for literally an hour and just like shove shovel food down your throat. And so that gradually kind of, I was able to put on weight with the right training and then the right um, amount of calories. But I was always mindful and had a general understanding, I think, of what quote unquote healthy food was, but nowhere near what I know now. And it was more probably around like the macros and just like certain type of food and vegetables and like high quality protein. Um, but what I've come to understand, much later in life is like the sourcing matters so much, and like the way in which both animal foods and plants are produced is the most important thing you can really focus on. And macros matter a lot less than you might think, and total calories and all that, because if you eat a 100 calories of like Doritos, it's very different than 100 calories of real whole foods. And your body's going to recognize those entirely different, know what to do that with that. So, that was always, a challenge for me. And then I had another setback. Going into my senior year, I actually broke my jaw in spring training camp. And so, I finally got up to probably about 235 pounds going into my senior year. So I kind of put on 5 to 10 pounds each year in college. And then I was on a full liquid diet, kind of drinking all my meals through a straw for 6 weeks while I had my jaw wired shut. And so even though I was
Oh,
really trying to maintain my weight, naturally, it was impossible to keep all that weight on when you're just doing a full liquid diet. And so I probably lost about 15 pounds, but was able to kind of put some of that back on going into senior year. Um, and then, I would say when I got to the NFL, everybody's bigger, faster, stronger. And so it was like being back in, as a freshman all over again, where even though I was 240 pounds, as an NFL fullback, that's now undersized. Fullbacks in the NFL were like 265, 270, just a lot bigger than I was. And so that was another, same old thing, just eat until you're, can't eat it anymore, and just continue to try to, you know, put on weight as much as possible. And so that came with some, negative side effects. So I had, a lot of heartburn and digestive issues, and just didn't feel great. Energy levels were kind of up and down all over the place. You eat a big meal like that, you want to go take a nap immediately or afterward, and just didn't, feel good about it. And it's what I came to understand is just like my full body as a result of the type of food wasn't as dialed in. There's just like a higher level of inflammation throughout the body, and that is the catalyst for everything that goes wrong. So when I was done playing, that's when I started to recognize, okay, I don't need to be 240 plus pounds anymore. Let's take a different approach to nutrition and see, how my body responds and transforms to that.
boy, I relate to that so much. I remember eating a cup of white jasmine rice with each and every meal, and I had 7 meals a day. So you can imagine
Oh, wow.
by the end of the day, what I felt like, because I was a hard gainer. It was hard, and kind
Yep.
of on the smaller petite size. So it was the same thing. Let's just feed her, feed her, feed her, get her to gain weight, and hopefully she'll put on muscle with that. So I relate to that. And I can't imagine with a broken jaw how absolutely terrible to be
Oh, it's
trying to
awful.
set this.
It was excruciatingly painful for one,
Oh,
and then I think it wouldn't have been as bad if I wasn't trying to maintain weight. If it was just okay, I can have smoothies or whatever, no big deal. But the fact that I was so focused going into my senior season around trying to kind of stay around, this 235, pound number, because I knew how important that was for, NFL scouts and everything else. Um, that was the worst part, because they ended up giving me a recipe book that was, basically I would prepare a full meal, like, hamburger or, pasta bolognese, something like that, put everything in a blender, blend it up, and then try to find some little space, in your teeth to suck it down, because it's, it was a terrible experience. But
ugh,
yeah,
that does not sound good. A ground up
no,
hamburger does not
no,
sound good, or pasta.
not fun. It was
Oh
not.
my.
Yeah.
So what brought you to okay, so you wound up doing a lot of traveling. You lived in Italy for a time, is that correct?
Yeah, I've actually lived in Italy on three different occasions for about a year or more each time. So the first opportunity I had was actually when I was in transition away from the NFL, and football was kind of coming to a close. There's actually an opportunity that surfaced to play American football overseas in Italy. And if you ever want to get a good idea of what that looks like, John Grisham wrote an amazing novel called Playing for Pizza, and that was almost spot on to kind of what life was like for me during that chapter and playing football in Italy. And so it was a professional league, but not nearly the level of what I'd grown accustomed to in NFL and even in college. But the cool thing was, the guys, there's only 3 Americans or 3 international players per team. The rest consists of Italian players. So as you can imagine, in that kind of like team environment, those people really become, your family members during that, camaraderie and everything that gets built up in the locker room. So I got a really authentic and unique experience living in Italy for the first time. And I was playing both sides of the ball again. I was playing running back and linebacker and safety, similar to what I did in high school. And so to be able to do that, again, I didn't need to be 240 plus pounds as like an NFL fullback. So I lost some weight intentionally going into that. And then when I was living there, I noticed one thing that stood out to me is when I would go grocery shopping and buy fresh produce and stuff, it would spoil, within a week of having it. Whereas in the US, I would go to like the supermarket and it seems like, certain things would last a month, if not longer. And so I started to do like a deeper dive into nutrition. I was starting to play around with different things with myself and look at kind of like slow carb diet, no carb diet, more of a plant based approach, and like all these different dietary theories, and was just using my own body as like the N of one kind of guinea pig to see what worked with me, what I could stick to over longer term, and how my body changed. And really, what I started to notice is that the adherence to just like higher quality of foods, eating more locally sourced foods, and avoiding stuff without like a lot of the chemicals and other things that goes into our food in the US, my body just naturally responded and completely changed from a physical standpoint. Energy levels, improved significantly, and a lot of the other, challenges that I was having before completely dissipated, and I didn't have the same discomfort after eating. The heartburn went away, and all that stuff. And so that really led me to do a much deeper dive into nutrition. And then my first job after football actually landed in nutrition, even though I thought I'd go the finance route. That's everything I'd kind of done outside of football was like financial focus. It was 2008 when I decided to, hang it up. Wasn't a lot of jobs in finance, obviously, at that point in time. And this opportunity to get started in the world of nutrition kind of landed on my plate. And that was very interesting because it was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. It was nutrition focused on obesity and bariatric surgery. So dealing with morbid obesity and the unique nutritional challenges of that patient population, and really addressing that through supervised medical weight loss, but also surgical intervention. And it was really through that time where I got like, kind of a business education in nutrition, and really got to understand kind of the science behind nutrition. We had a staff of PhDs who were really working on kind of developing products and really going in depth around some of the physiological reasons, you know, why this unique patient population wasn't absorbing vitamin D and a lot of like specific vitamins and minerals. And when you change the anatomy, that makes it even more challenging. So it was extremely enlightening and educational. It was then that I started to see, okay, there's a correspondence between this, not just this patient population that's struggling with nutrition, it's actually the entire general population of the United States, and even beyond that. And that's kind of fueled the quest to figure out why that is.
There's such an addictive nature of food, I think, that plays into this too, making it difficult for people to make those lifestyle shifts. And then we're not the other thing I was thinking of as you were talking is not being able to absorb those nutrients. So I think that's a huge problem that is not on people's radar. You've got the addictive nature of this fast food, ultra processed food, where people just want to eat more and more and more. And then you have a situation like you had touched on earlier, where inflammation, so all of that bloating, all of that digestive upset is signs of inflammation, and then we are not taking in those nutrients if we are perpetually inflamed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so all health starts in the gut, right? And if you're eating a standard American diet, guarantee your gut is a mess, right? So you don't have, and we're more bacterial cells than we are actually human cells, right? So keeping those good microorganisms happy and healthy in the gut is central to overall well-being. It also has a big impact on cravings and addictiveness to sugar and kind of these junk foods and other things that you alluded to. It's that bad bacteria in the gut that's typically craving those because that's what they thrive off of. They thrive off the sugar and the junk. Whereas the good bacteria in your gut need the prebiotic fiber and those starchy foods and all that. So it really starts in the gut, kind of revamping that environment, making sure you tighten up the gut lining so that things aren't seeping out into the bloodstream, which then is the catalyst for inflammation. And then how inflammation manifests, the end result is typically that symptom, and that's where like the role of epigenetics starts to come into play. For me, that symptom might be diabetes or obesity. For you, it might be some sort of autoimmune disease, right? So it just depends on what you're kind of predisposed to, and that's going to show up based off that chronic inflammation that's constantly um, going on in your body. But that can all be changed simply by changing your lifestyle, changing your diet, focusing on fixing the gut, protecting the gut, and then continuing to nourish yourself with high quality real whole foods.
Now, you talked about working with that population that has the bypass surgery. What were the biggest challenges you were seeing those patients have?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. So the bypass surgery or lap band or any of the main types of bariatric surgery, that's really just a tool. So if you don't address the behavioral or psychological part, no tool, no matter how good, is going to be enough to kind of get you to succeed over the long term, right? So that's where like the centers of excellence, really the best in class surgical centers would have an exercise physiologist. They would typically have a psychologist or behavioral coach on hand, definitely a dietitian, nutritionist, and those are all working around that patient care with the surgeon to ensure that they have the tools and resources they need to succeed over the long term. On the nutrition side, it was twofold. So with a bariatric surgery, you're bypassing the upper third of the small intestine, which is the primary binding site for a lot of the essential vitamins and minerals. So it's basically impossible for you to get all your nutrients from food alone. Also, you have to think about the portion size of the meals that they're able to eat because the stomach goes from the size of a football down to about the size of your fist or smaller. So that's significantly reduced. You're not able to consume as much food. You're bypassing, these primary absorption sites. So vitamin supplementation was key to give your body the nourishment it needs because it wasn't going to get it for food. And you would see that all the times. I would go and present at support groups around the country, and those people that were taking their vitamins and taking their nutrition seriously had significantly better outcomes. They just looked healthier. Their skin was more colorful. Their hair was strong, and all that. Versus those that kind of reverted back to old habits, and wasn't taking their nutrition seriously. Yes, many of them had lost weight, but they looked more sickly. They didn't have kind of lean muscle mass, and there was other issues that would kind of pop up as a result just because they were malnourished.
Wow, what success rate did you see in people who were willing to do the supplementation, do the exercise? How many, and I know you might not have an exact number, but roughly would actually do those lifestyle changes?
It's a great question. I don't know what. I think it depends on the practice and what's how comprehensive the practice and the resources are. Like I said, like the centers of excellence, they really took all these other facets very seriously. And so when a patient would kind of struggle or hit a roadblock, they have somebody on the team that they could go to. Recidivism is, still very high in the industry as a whole. And so again, I would just say that those practices that didn't have that continuity of care would have a higher percentage of patients that would kind of fall back to their old ways. So, yeah, I don't think the tool is ever enough. There's plenty, and not just for this specifically, any weight loss journey or any, goal, health goal for that matter, without the right combination of coaches and resources. There's no lack of information out there, but it's
Right.
really like those accountability partners a lot of times, having that coach and that team that helps to hold you accountable for the goals that you have for yourself can be extremely powerful.
Oh yeah, habit change is it's challenging. Our brains don't like it, kind of fights us back a little bit, even if it's a good habit change. It's very difficult for people, depending on their backgrounds. I could see where that would really vary if they didn't have that support or accountability, somebody to guide them through. And we see this now with the Ozempic
Yeah.
injections that people are getting. And I'm not necessarily anti-Ozempic. Maybe there's a place, but, I also find that if they don't put those lifestyle habits in place, they're losing, they're gonna be losing precious skeletal muscle, maybe regaining the weight and be in a worse position than what they started in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. Ozempic, it's providing that short-term success, and arguably, any diet that you're going to go on is going to provide that short-term success. Ozempic is probably an even easier, faster way of getting, the end result. But you have to ask yourself, do I want to be on this medication for the rest of my life, or am I really willing to kind of change some of my behaviors, some of my lifestyles, and think about it from a longevity and sustainability standpoint? Because one, it's not cheap. Two, it's not a magic bullet. So if you're not doing these other things, yes, it can get you some great short-term results. Obviously, there's some, side effects that you've got to be comfortable with, and understand going into that. But again, there's no magic bullet. There's no, easy answer. It's putting in the work. And it is strange, right? And kind of funny that, we are so resistant to change as humans, but um, change is the only way that we grow, right? And if you look at nature, it's in constant change. It's in constant evolution, right? So if we can embrace that and understand that change is actually more of who we naturally are, then we can start to say, okay, well, maybe let me think about this differently. Maybe let me try something new and see how that works for me. But I feel like we all want just kind of that quick fix solution. We want the end result without having to put in the work a lot of times. And unfortunately, that's just not how things work.
No, it's not. That is human nature. We want the path of least resistance. What's going to get
Yeah,
me there fast? That's, not going to exert my brain, my body, and tax me in any way and make this easy. And there just isn't quick fix. It's a series of really small baby steps along the way. I know that's how I changed. I would change one thing and then another, and then I layered on another as I learned more. And it was really I'm sure you found the same to be true over the course of years. It's not like you wake up and you're doing
totally.
this whole new lifestyle.
Well, and that's a great thing about looking back, and I'm grateful that I've instilled a lot of these daily practices, continued to kind of focus on diet, lifestyle, and nutrition. Um, because yes, as I get older, certain things will pop up, certain, old injuries become a little bit more annoying. But, doing all the preventative stuff, I know hands down has kept me feeling younger, healthier, being able to do a lot of things that I enjoy doing. Like I just turned 40 last year, and I feel amazing. I'm probably arguably the best shape of my life. But that's because, I've been so disciplined about continuing to do these things. And for me, it's not really a sacrifice anymore. I know too much to do the opposite. It's just a way, it's the obvious way of living for me. And it's way more enjoyable because I feel so much better, sleep so much more easily at night. I'm not stressed out, all these other ancillary benefits that aren't just about, the physical and appearance side of things, but, really quality of life things, which is super important.
Yeah, that's great when that happens. Initially, you're just trying to do the new habits, and then you start to reap the benefits. I see this with the clients, health coaching clients that I work with a lot. And you can just see that switch kind of go, oh, like they try to go back and eat something they ate before, and they're like, that made me feel like crap. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't worth it. I really don't want that anymore. So it's a great thing to see. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about the blue zones. Specifically, I know you were in Italy, but what blue zones did you visit and what did you see? What commonalities did you see?
Yeah, so I've lived in Bologna, Italy, but I've also most recently lived in Sardinia, Italy. And so there's actually, I think in the Blue Zone study, it's like a small, tiny town within Sardinia itself. It's a little bit more isolated. It's kind of up in the mountains, but I think shares still a lot of like the cultural similarities of Sardinia as a region. You look at some of the other blue zones. I think a few of them are actually little bit more isolated or islands outside of like Loma Linda, which is more of a Seventh-day Adventist community. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like its own little island within, the subtext of Southern California.
Mm.
Um, but there's some really interesting things that they pulled from the Blue Zone studies, but it's it's not as mysterious or challenging as people might think. It's really a focus on kind of eating within the seasons, kind of locally sourced, locally grown produce and animals. It's a mix of the two. It's not, they don't have this dietary approach to or dogmatic approach to like diet nutrition. It's really like they're eating what they're producing locally. And I think from a nutrition standpoint, that's probably one of the most profound things. Like the more invested you can become in where your food comes from, and again, whether that's both animal foods and plant-based foods, that's become super important because it's now more confusing than ever before to make informed choices. My wife and I were just at the grocery store the other day, and we're trying to avoid both corn and soy in like eggs and everything. And you'd be surprised how difficult it is to understand if the chickens were fed, corn and soy, or if they're just kind of naturally, grazing on pastures and bugs or whatever. And so you have to kind of reach out to the companies and ask them like what's going into their feed. And it's so much more complex. But when, to the average person, you're looking, everything seems great, cage free, pasture raised and all this stuff. But it's very challenging because then, a lot of people would just make a decision based off price because it's so confusing, right? Um, Whereas, in some of the blue zones, like you're just getting eggs from your next door neighbor who's got
Right.
like 15 chickens or whatever roaming around the hen house, or tomatoes from the guy down the street. And of course, they're not spending like pesticides and herbicides on that because their family's consuming them, the local community's consuming them. So there's just like a lot of stuff that never goes into the food production, even the wine. And some of like the regions where we lived in, very well known, obviously, for wine and olive oil production, but like spraying pesticides on the crops is just like unheard of for them. They would actually introduce some other insect, or maybe some like very like a almost like a vinegar type solution or something like that to kind of address anything that was problematic for the vineyard before leaning on harsh chemicals. And so and you see that, right, if you look at kind of Europe and what's banned there versus what's accepted here, and how food labels are so much different, and what can go into our food here versus there. it's crazy. It's really wild. And a lot of people, I think, when they move to the U.S., definitely struggle with that because they think they're eating the same food as they may have in their home country, but it's not the case based off like all the other crap that goes into it.
Oh boy, you hit on it. My son's in the Navy and he's been stationed in just near Tokyo in Japan for the last 4 years, getting ready to go back in December. But he mentioned that from being there, eating their food, because he said it's pure. Like you could go into a 7-Eleven and they have good food in a 7-Eleven. And then he came here. They sent him to first Florida and then Virginia to do train some of the new air traffic controllers. First thing he said to me goes, I never have this digestive upset, and my
Yeah.
stomach is constantly hurting with the food that
Hmm.
I'm eating here. And it is, you just hit on it. We traveled to Italy last year. We've been twice. Absolutely love Italy. And same thing, I did not restrict myself there. And I normally will not touch gluten breads, any of that. I had it. No bloating, no weight gain, no digestive upset. And I'm like, this is proof for me.
Absolutely. But they're making everything from scratch. It's
Right.
simple ingredients, it's you look at pasta here and pasta there, there's probably 20 ingredients, 30 ingredients in pasta that you'd buy at the supermarket here. There it's, flour and water or maybe eggs, depending on the type of pasta you're getting. So it's, night and day in terms of, and just like the steps that they take and the mindfulness to prepare the food, and then actually sitting down and enjoying the meals with friends and family, and giving proper space and time to that. And then the passeggiata, which is great for digestion. So that's the post meal walk, and you see hundreds or thousands of people just out in the street walking very late at night. After they've had dinner and stuff to wind down, and just like giving your body a chance to properly digest the meal before going to sleep. So it's all these, just simple lifestyle habits that are just ingrained in the culture there that, we just don't really think of, or we haven't fully embraced here in the US. On the total opposite side, we drive through a drive through, eat in our car, a $2 meal that's loaded with like chemicals and all that stuff, right? And that's supposed to be food. That's crazy. It's not food. It's all chemicals. It's all crap. And it's not doing anything to uh, get us healthier. If you look at it, like U.S., we spend more on healthcare per GDP than per capita than any other developed country, but we've got one of the sickest populations. Right. And the thing that you can point back to is, well, our food system is so much radically different than a lot of cultures around the world.
I think people are starting to wake up a little bit to this, which is good to see. I know it's a passion of mine, is just to get that information out so that people know, they know what's going on
Sure.
with the food supply. And glyphosate is a huge problem. It's even in the some of the supplements I've even heard
Yeah.
are sprayed with glyphosate, such as collagen is a big one. You got to be careful where you get that from. It's endless what we allow here and how it's affecting our health and then our youth. That really bothers me because now you're starting to see the health issues with very
Yep.
young individuals.
Yeah, I mean, childhood obesity and any number of, other, chronic lifestyle conditions, we're seeing the youth really struggle with. You look at, fertility rates and how those are dropping off a cliff, which is very scary. If you look at, what's changed, it's our food system. That's the number one thing that's changed so significantly over such a short period of time. And so there's plenty of data to support, the reason why. Like, there's no reason why, 8-year-old should be struggling with, these conditions, and it's very sad. But, we've become way more sedentary. The food is, the quality of food is diminished, and we're not getting the nutrition, which that's the primary role of food. It's to nourish our bodies so that we can, naturally move around and feel great and be energized to, unlock all the beautiful and amazing things about life, right? And now that's been taken away. It's been stripped out of the quote unquote foods that we're largely eating, and it's just, destroying health.
I agree. I think it even plays into mental health. I mean, how can you
Absolutely.
feel your best if your body it's sick? It's, you have digestive issues, or maybe it's, I see people, they get rashes, joint pain, and then this can translate, I think, into anxiety, depression, even in young people, and we're seeing that at alarming rates as well.
100%. And I think, again, it goes back to the gut, right? That's really, you think about first brain, second brain, your gut's probably your primary brain. And that's sending a lot of signals directly up to, your brain. And so if that's out of whack, you know, serotonin levels, dopamine, all this stuff's going to be out of balance, right? So, we want to address mental health with medication and, therapy and all that stuff. But we can't overlook the role of nutrition in all this, right? That's the primary place to start. If your gut's a mess, if stuff's seeping into your bloodstream, it's going to affect, the brain. It's going to affect, everything in the body, right? So we really need to get back to a place where we're addressing nutrition first off and foremost, getting that, eliminating the stuff, because no supplement, no, type of food is going to matter if you're still, consuming like the no-go list of stuff, right? If you can eliminate those, right, kind of get that under control, that gives the gut a chance to heal itself. And then, you know, you can start to see, okay, how do I feel as a result of that? Do I still need to kind of put in some extra work? Like, how's my brain responded? How do I feel overall? But that is really the first place to start if you want to be, healthy over the long term, not be reliant on medication, which are really just addressing symptoms and not the root cause of all this.
I agree with you. And I think research has just kind of touched the surface of the role of the gut and the microbiome. And I mean, we have microbiomes all throughout our body, in our brain. We're just tapping into it. And so that's exciting to see that come to fruition, that information. I want to ask you about Life Fuel. What is it? And why did you develop it? And can you just share a little bit about that with our listeners?
Yeah, so LyfeFuel resulted as kind of a combination of both that professional and personal experience around nutrition and really this problem that we just addressed of kind of we're overfed, undernourished as a population, right? So we get plenty of calories. A lot of them don't have real substance to them, but we're not getting the nourishment we need from food anymore. If you look at the statistics, 95, it's probably like 98 or 99% of people are not getting essential vitamins and minerals they need from food alone, and certainly not at kind of therapeutic or functional nutrition standards of nutrition. Many of us are even falling short to meet the bare minimums for like the RDIs, which are pretty much just there to prevent against vitamin related disease states like scurvy and rickets and those types of things. So fortunately, because our food's been fortified, most people are not, having those types of things. However, we're still not getting adequate levels of nutrients from food alone. You look at something like vitamin D3, in the combination of D3 plus K2, the role in moving calcium out of the arteries and into the bones where it belongs. Things that like magnesium and iodine and selenium and all these like great minerals that's essentially been stripped from our soil, because if you look at monocrop agriculture, it's grown using pretty much just dirt. There's no more nutrients in the soil. So now that's not passing into fruits and vegetables and even the animal meats if you're consuming kind of like mass produced foods or packaged foods and all that stuff. So LyfeFuel was really designed to put back what's missing from food. Our hero product was the Essentials Nutrition Shake, which is arguably the most complete solution to daily nutrition, using those functional nutrition guidelines, ensuring it replicates what you should be getting from a real whole food meal, right? So there's a lot of like greens powders or protein shakes or vitamins, multivitamins out there on the market. but none of those are complete solutions, right? The green shakes doesn't have protein. The protein shake doesn't have the vitamins and minerals, and the multivitamin doesn't have the protein or phytonutrients or anything. So we really wanted to look at this from a holistic whole foods perspective and put everything into one product. So you're not taking dozens of different supplements on a daily basis, wondering, if they're working, if they're moving the needle for your health or not. The other big thing that we're leaning into now is a real food based approach to nutrition. 99.9% of the supplements on the market are synthetically derived. So that means they're starting with a nature identical, vitamin or mineral, most likely derived from petroleum or something like that, something that the body is not going to obviously recognize or absorb that well. It's why you look at a lot of times, you take a B vitamin or something, your urine turns like neon yellow or whatever. Your body's just kind of disposing of that. It's not absorbing it. It doesn't know what to do with those synthetic chemicals. So LyfeFuel, we're really leading the way to real food nutrition. We launched a product about a year ago. It's our Essential Nutrition Bar. It's the first bar in the market that is derived from 100% real whole foods that delivers 21 different vitamins and minerals at 25% of your daily value. And we use cranberry and pumpkin and chlorella and all these things that you can pronounce, exactly what they are. You can, look out your backyard and your garden and you can actually grow all these things. And that's really the difference in LyfeFuel. We'll also be leaning into kind of fermentation, which breaks down some of the anti-nutrients in plants, makes these products more bioavailable, easier to absorb and all that. And this all starts with a science first based approach to nutrition, as opposed to, just some big marketing company that grabbed a product off the shelf, puts a label on it, and then, hypes it up.
No, I love that you're doing this and with ethics and integrity. That's so important that you see a need and you're meeting that need in a way that's based on science, based on whole nutritious food. I really love that. And the bar, it's kind of funny. I was laughing as you were talking about it. One of the number one questions I get from women, can I have some type of protein bar? Can I have they want bars, but I'm always
Yeah.
saying no, 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 no. They're full of junk.
And the majority of them are, you look at something like Kind bars, right? They're just candy bars at the end of the
They
day.
are.
They're just complete, sugar bombs, and that's not going to do anything to get you closer to your health goals. And that's the majority of, the bar industry, right? So many of them are just full of junk. They're candy bars in disguise, essentially. And they taste like it too, right? Like, oh, I love this bar.
Right.
Well, of course you love the bar. There's 30 grams of sugar in it. It's going to taste amazing, but it's not, healthy and nutritious. And so, we spent a considerable amount of time developing the bars. With the bars, we wanted there to be at least one hero superfood, one or two hero superfoods. So one of our products is a lemon ginger turmeric. So lemon ginger turmeric, great for inflammation, great during like cold and flu season. The other one is maca and cacao, great for vitality and energy and all those like amazing benefits. And then the core nutrients, the macros, obviously you're getting your protein, you're getting a ton of fiber, which is mostly prebiotic fiber. So great way to keep those good bugs in your gut happy and healthy and thriving. And one other thing that we do is really unique, is we use a seed that farmers in India, is very common in their culture to use this seed prior to going out and working in the fields. It actually helped to curb hunger levels, and because they'd be away working all day and they would only be able to kind of eat when they came home at night. So instead of Ozempic, you can have a bar that actually keeps you, satiated, and it doesn't cost $1,000. It only costs a few bucks, and it's got all your nutrients and everything else in it. So yeah, our approach to a bar is well beyond, way more advanced and sophisticated than any protein bar out there.
Because most of them, you eat it and you're still hungry, or at least that's me.
Yeah, I eat 10 and I'm still hungry of like
Yeah.
other bars. It's just like, but they're business because you'll eat a box of bars in like a 2 or 3 day span, but it's not really doing what a bar should be doing, right? From our perspective, a bar is there kind of as a backup plan or a safety net in between meals, right? You're on the go, you're crunched for
Right.
time, you need a snack because you're hungry or you don't have time. That one bar should fill you up enough, nourish you, and send that signal to your brain, said, okay, I'm good. Now I can wait until I'm ready to have the next meal or whatever. And that's why it's just funny. Like the whole nutrition category usually takes kind of a reductionist approach to nutrition. It's like protein, okay, or vitamin D or B12, and right next thing you know, you've got a supplement cabinet full of all these different one-off things, and they've completely forgot it that these things all need to work in synergy and should work holistically. And so that's our unique approach is we really look at that holistic combination of nutrients and really try to get that as close to real whole foods as possible.
Well, I'm definitely going to be trying some of these products and the bars for sure, so that I can share it with my
Amazing.
listeners and with my clients. That's
Yeah, absolutely,
awesome.
happy to send you some.
But you're right about having, I mean, I was thinking of my cabinet as you were talking. It's like there's the methylated B, and there's the D and the K3 and the calcium and it's so many capsules and pills in the morning.
Yeah,
Sometimes I get fatigued with it. Some days
for
I'm
sure.
like, I don't want to swallow all that.
Yeah, so the pill fatigue is a real thing, especially, as you get older. Some people might be taking medications and the supplements on
Right.
top of it. Like it's just a higher incident of people going to their doctors, getting their, labs checked. Okay, now it's time to take your multivitamin, your vitamin D3. I want you taking these like 12 products. One, that's expensive. Two, it's not enjoyable at all. And so that's why we looked at, what are these most common nutritional needs? How can we create a singular product that's going to deliver the baseline of nutrients like we all need, and that allows you to be more strategic about any additional supplements you may want to take for therapeutic benefits or training specific benefits or something like that. So it's really, condensing 12 products down into one, saving you time, saving you money, getting rid of a lot of those pills, capsules, and powders, giving you a nice, amazing smoothie that you can look forward to on a daily basis, and then say, okay, what else can I do? What else do I need to do if there's still some additional gaps based off my individual needs? And that's, I think, a really important thing to bring attention to is we need to get away from this dogmatic approach to diets and nutrition. Anybody that's telling you there's like a one size fits all to like go vegan or go keto and doesn't hasn't done like hasn't looked at your blood work, doesn't know anything about your genetics or what's going on in your gut, like just run the other way because they're just trying to sell you like a dogmatic protocol. Like I think the elimination of ultra processed foods, that's like foundational to where you need to start. But then you need to kind of understand bio individuality, what your specific bottlenecks are, what your specific goals are, what you enjoy, right? Because food should still be enjoyable, right? You should still get
Hmm.
a lot of pleasure out of food. Food's meant to taste amazing, but it doesn't need to be packed with, seed oils and sugar and all this garbage. That's where like herbs and spices and the right combination of cooking skills can really bring out the best taste and flavor in food.
Oh, we're in complete agreement. The bioindividuality, that's probably my favorite word that I throw around when it comes to everything, because even exercise falls into this. What works really well for one person might not work so well for another. And then I've
Totally.
noticed there's always outliers that don't respond to things the way you anticipate them responding to things. So you always have to have that in mind. I think, ethnicity plays a role, the part of the world people live in, all of that
Absolutely.
has to be, yeah, so I agree with you, um, 100% there. I wanna
Yeah.
be respectful of your time, Chris. As we wrap up, a couple of different questions for you. How can the listeners, order your products, get in touch with you, follow your work? And then also, is there anything I didn't bring up or ask that you would want the listeners to know?
Yeah, so in terms of finding out more about LyfeFuel and where you can purchase our products, it's just through our website is the primary point. It's LyfeFuel. That's life with a Y, LyfeFuel.com. Um, yeah, sign up for a newsletter. I've also got a personal newsletter that I recently started. So if you're looking for kind of more like a deeper dive into conversations like this, we'll be sending out kind of that newsletter to that audience on a more frequent basis. And then, yeah, I think that we kind of touched on in different facets of this conversation. And something that we offer is kind of a holistic health coaching program. And so, our approach and our philosophy is that, yes, our products are amazing. Yes, they can support you wherever you're at in your health journey. But a lot of times people need more than that. They need, somebody like yourself or, some sort of tool set to really coach them and hold them accountable to the goals that they want to achieve and be there to support them through the roadblocks and the bottlenecks and the family issues, your friends, like all those things that we face along our health journey that want to pull us away from the goal that we have. And that's really like we really think of ourselves as a transformation company, not just a nutrition company. And so that's really the best way to start your journey with us is through that transformation program. You have access to kind of myself and my wife, who's also a holistic health coach, and all the resources, a lot of the stuff from both our experience and scientific literature that we've baked into that program to really empower people to take back control of their health, be their own advocates for wellness, and just empower them with the knowledge and skill sets they need to make this a lasting central part of their life. I just can't say that like health is the number one investment we can all make, right? It's the one thing that when it's gone, it's the only thing that you focus on. So like
Mhm.
the more you can do to be proactive about it, the better off I think you'll be.
Yes, and coaching is so key. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am at now without having had, I had my bodybuilding coaches, nutrition
Absolutely.
coaches, exercise, and then business. I had business
Yep.
coaches. I'm a firm believer, find somebody who's just a little bit, ahead of you and let them guide the way.
Absolutely. And that's the same thing for me as an athlete. I always had, great mentors, great coaches, and now in business as well, who's, kind of shed that light and said, okay, well, like don't make the same mistakes that I've made, and held me accountable to the goals that I had along the way. And just don't underestimate the power of coaches and the ability to for them to help because they can really fast track your results and huge. And that was kind of part of our philosophy too. Like a lot of times that was only accessible like if you're a celebrity or a professional athlete where you had your nutritionist, your personal trainer, your therapist, right? And we want to kind of democratize that and have provide that level of service, but through technology and kind of having your team of coaches in your pocket on the go there when you need it. So
So good. Well, I've really enjoyed our discussion, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. I know the listeners are going to gain just a lot of value from what we talked about today. So I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
you bet. Thanks, Carol. Really appreciate being here and hope your listeners get a lot out of it.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.